Hey guys, running today, God revealed being one with others. And what does that mean? It means speaking the same language. It's important to define the language that you are going to use with that other person because that will save you a lot of misunderstanding, maybe even confusion or argument based on the words you use because they can be misinterpreted. So, for example, I'm going to give you my before Christ and after Christ. Before Christ, leadership, the word leadership meant that a leader was a monster, a leader was a false stream. That was my definition of a leader. Why? Because it came from my father, who, when he was drunk, would just beat on somebody, whether it was physically, mentally, in whichever way you can imagine. My father just had to beat on somebody every time he was drunk. But for a short moment, when he was hungover, he would want all the love and attention to go to him. So he would always call us to be by his side, loving on him or taking care of him because he just, was hungover. So he'd tell us, "Hey, go get me water or go do this," and that's his definition of love. So that was my vision of what a leader was, and now that I came to Christ, it totally changed because it means to serve others. And that's based on what Jesus' last teaching was to his disciples. And I have that written down real quick. It's in Acts 1:13. You call me, I'm sorry, let me see. I'm sorry, it's on John 13:1-17, but this one is on 13. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's. So God is teaching them, showing them what leader is. I mean, you call me Lord, you call me teacher, and here I am washing your feet. How much more should you not do to others, or to one another, what it says. So, that is my character. That is how God called me to lead others. It's by serving them, by attending to them. The word leader has not different meanings, but it's expressed differently in the Bible. So if you find one that's more closely and completely by the Bible defined, and it says, leadership was this, then you can be in the same language with someone. For example, the prophets, they were all leaders, and judges. They were all leaders leading Israel. But the prophets, in their case, they weren't heard, or they weren't highly esteemed. They were mostly hated, like Jeremiah and Daniel. Those guys were just not hurt. They didn't change many people's lives in the sense that that's why they call it Lamentations, because Jeremiah would just lament over his people going down a path that was death. And all the prophets were like that. And judges, they were called to lead Israel. They were, like Moses, or even Samson, who was not a very good judge, but they all sacrificed themselves for their people. Even Samson, who did everything wrong, at the end, he killed a whole bunch of people. I can't remember, they weren't Pharisees, but serving what God purposed him to do was to judge them. Anyway, if you find the definition of each word, then you are one with that person. And no matter how much time passes by, you know what it means to me today. Where I get my definition from, and why I take that one to my heart, because it's part of my character. So when the Bible says that you are one with your partner, with one another, it just means that you're speaking the same language. And if you take that important step to understand and define your conversation with somebody else before you have the conversation, then you will understand and what being one with that person is. Because there's going to be less argument. If I start my conversation and I say my foundation is the Bible and is God, and I don't even go to the Old Testament so much, but my foundation and the way my character is built, I base myself on God's grace, on Jesus' cross and resurrection. So even if they're Christian and they don't see grace, they rather go to the 2 commandments or the 10 commandments, or just take another different part of the Bible. That's not being one. Being one is talking in the same language. So he or she will be based on one thing, on the cross of Jesus Christ and on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And if we talk and have a conversation with that foundation, with that root, then we're one, and we'll have a lot less argument or complications. That's what it's defined in Acts as well. And this is what I got confused with. In Acts 1:14, it says that the disciples, the 11 disciples left, these all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication. Now, Jesus had resurrected the 40 days. Everybody saw him. He's ascended to heaven. And they go back to Israel, to the upper room. And the first thing they do is they come to one accord to pray and supplicate. And that's all they do. So they were one. Even though they were 11 plus Mary and Jesus' mom, besides them two, so there'd be 13. All 13 had one thing in common, and they were one together because they were all in one accord. Thanks, guys. Please comment something, anything. Don't just like. If you don't agree with me, that's awesome. That's cool. Let me know why. Of course, mind you, I just said it. I always start off by saying, my foundation is rooted on Jesus' cross and resurrection. So please leave a note, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Have a great Sunday.